Master your money, free your future. Welcome to Budget for Life. My name is Jeremy. I'm not a professional YouTuber. I'm a financial advisor, and this video is not financial advice. In this video, I want to talk about GameStop's industries. What industries does GameStop compete in, and what are the fundamental demand drivers of those industries, and how much of a secular tailwind is GameStop positioned within, or are they just fighting in the wrong corner of the market? Because we saw this post from Larry Chang on X a few weeks ago. He says the number one predictor, and Larry Chang, if you don't know, is on the board for GameStop. He says the number one predictor of whether a young business today will be strongly compounding 5 to 10 years from now is if the market they operate in is strongly compounding 5 to 10 years from now. Secular long-term market growth is the best enabler of secular long-term company growth. Now, GameStop is not a young business, but they do have a few young businesses. With less than 1 year old is a digital power packs business with its own industry. And less than 1 year old is their card grading business with its own industry and its own fundamental drivers. I want to walk you through it today and also compare it to GameStop's legacy business and how itself is positioned. Before I get into it, just want to say thank you to those who have subscribed. There's 100 spots left before we hit 2525. Would love for you to be a part of it. If you're a part of it, you can forever call yourself a Halo Sub Club member, which would mean that you subscribed to the channel back when there were fewer than 2,525 people. Also, thank you to those who join as fans and friends. 100% of the earnings go to DRS Book GME shares, so I appreciate the support. And ultimately, I'm here to expose the truth of the company, look at the fundamentals of the company, um, not to provide hopium, right? Not to just pump the stock, although, hey, nice to have a green day finally. Are we about to turn the tables? Should be fun to see. GameStop, legacy business. The GameStop video game store. Okay, what is their market? Consoles and games, physical games and video game consoles. What is the greater industry that that legacy business was a part of? Video games. And what is the larger umbrella that video games is within? Well, they are within the entertainment industry, but GameStop's position is really within the retail industry. So even though entertainment and even though video games have been growing at really impressive rates year over year for decades now, physical retail, right, commercial retailers has not been a market that's worth coveting, right? We have seen so many physical retailers go bankrupt in the past 2 decades, right? It's not that enviable of a position to be a physical store. And you see that in the PEs that retailers often get, right? I mean, from Dick's Sporting Goods to Best Buy to Ulta to Williams Sonoma, Ross, Boot Barn, Home Depot, it is hard to get a PE that is in line with the PE that the S&P 500 receives of about 31, right? Most retailers are trading at a discount from a business valuation multiple perspective compared to the overall US market. What does that mean? The retail industry is not a secularly advantageous industry to be a part of. However, GameStop does happen to be in, for all the types of industries you could be a retailer for, entertainment and video games within entertainment is certainly a compelling space to fight within in terms of the fundamental demand for consoles, right? People like the fundamental demand for entertainment is like dopamine, right? The desire for pleasure, okay, which can be fueled by stress, can be fueled by all sorts of things, right? To want to entertain yourself could be fueled by boredom, could be fueled by chronic understimulation, right? And the entertainment space is becoming more and more expensive. And that competitively puts video games in a nice position, right? Video games, gaming is a nice part of the entertainment industry to be a part of, right? Because it's a less expensive way to entertain yourself compared to many alternatives. But also, the potency of the dopamine is much richer in a video game than in many other entertainment competitors, right? Compared to getting a notification on social media or watching a movie or a show, often video games can move much faster and be much more stimulating as it relates to entertainment. The problem is GameStop within the video game industry is not the coveted part of the video game industry, right? You'd much rather be EA Sports that just sold, for $50 billion or something like that. You'd much rather be a Nintendo, right? A developer of IP that has appreciated dramatically in value over decades of time, fandom, new and like more and more releases, right? You would much rather be the game makers and the people who sell things to you within games rather than just the store that sells consoles. However, overall, video games is a growing industry, and overall, the video game industry's ability, right? Its competitive position within entertainment, as far as lower cost, quicker access, more potent dopamine, is very nicely positioned. It's just that the console portion of that industry is not the most lucrative part of that industry. And despite being in the entertainment industry, in many ways, GameStop's legacy business is overshadowed by the fact that it is also very much in the retail industry, right? But what has GameStop started? What is GameStop's young businesses, even if you don't believe in the leadership, right? Like, even if they don't make all the perfect decisions, are they operating in a strongly compounding market? Because if so, that is the best enabler of long term growth. Well, here are the new businesses. Okay, here's one of them: graded cards and card grading, right? You can buy graded cards from GameStop and you can get your cards graded at GameStop. What is the industry that that's a part of? The collectibles industry. And what is the industry that the collectibles industry is a part of? It is stores of value, right? And we've talked about this in previous videos, so I don't want to get too into it again. But these stores of value, what are the fundamental drivers for the stores of value industry, right? The overall market, the overall demand for alternative stores of value or stores of value, period, right? Inflation is a big one, right? And then what are the demand for collectibles? Well, now you're talking about alternative stores of value. Why would you want to store value, period? Because you want to exist as a human, right? You need to exchange value. You don't want to live in a utopia that you have to produce every single thing you consume. You want to live within a market that has tradable assets. You want to be able to exchange things for value to get the things that you need, right? So you're always going to need to store value. Why collectibles? Why alternative stores of value? Well, inflation, right? If all of fiat currency is controlled by governments and those governments have the ability to create more currency at will, it offers something to people to have alternative ways to store value that can't just be rehypothecated, it can't just be infinitely printed and expanded upon. It also offers something to people to have something physical rather than just something on a screen, right? That's why a lot of people would rather own real estate than own stocks. They like being able to see what they own. Also, within the collectibles industry, you see a movement towards lower cost, easier access, easier to store, easier to trade, easier to insure. You see that across the collectibles industry, and it just so happens that graded cards are the apple in the eye of the collectibles industry. Graded cards are the best part of the industry that they're in, and the industry they're in is the best part of the industry that the industry's in, right? The collectibles ability to store value has fundamental advantages. I'm not saying the collectibles market is larger than the fiat currency market. Okay, we're talking 15 billion, or sorry, 500 million compared to 150 trillion. Okay, but as far as projecting long-term compounding growth, long-term secular outperformance, right? Fundamentally, if you can own things that you can have a known quantity for, right? Like that you can see, that you can touch, that can't just be infinitely produced, that you don't have to place your trust in anyone else to maintain a level of security about the value that you've stored, that fundamentally is attractive. That's a fast growing, exciting part of this overall store of value industry to be a part of. And what is the other industry that GameStop is in? It's the industry that Digital Power Packs is in, which overlaps, right, with the collectibles and the store of value. But actually, it's more akin to the gambling industry. Power Packs offers what gambling offers, but it is the apple in the eye of the gambling industry. Check it out. Easier participation for a better product with a wider moat. Okay? Power packs, there's no age restriction, there's no warning messages, there's no regulatory risks or costs. Compared to if I were to go place uh, whatever, a bet on prize picks or whatever you've heard shilled about from whoever promoting gambling sites, right? They have to offer these warnings, which is a deterrent, and there's highly regulated aspects of the industry that adds risk to being shut down and adds cost to operations compared to power packs, which technically is not gambling. And so therefore they don't have to do these things. So it's much easier and for a customer to participate in power packs, and it's much easier for GameStop to offer power packs. Power packs is also fundamentally a better product than what the gambling industry overall offers. They give you clarity on the odds and averages, right? You see the odds right here. They tell you the book and the average. And check it out. The average card value is the same cost as the power pack is, right? So there's more transparency. You are guaranteed to receive value in exchange. You will get something back. You will get a card that has value. You're not going to end up with nothing. You can spend money to win money with power packs, like traditionally you do in gambling, or you could spend money to acquire something physical. And this is technically why it's not gambling, is because you're always spending money to purchase the card. But then you just have the option to immediately sell the card back for money. So you spend money to get card to win money, or you spend money to win card and keep the card. So you get something physical. You can sell it now or you can sell it later, right? You can cash in on your earnings whenever you want to. And the underlying asset is likely to appreciate in value. So when you buy this card, even if you spent 50 bucks and you end up with a card that's only worth 40, there's a good chance that if you just sit on it for a year or two, that it will be worth more than what you paid, right? So the appreciating collectibles market is part of what makes power packs an even more compelling gambling product than traditional sports betting and casinos. There's also a much wider moat for GameStop because there's much less competition in the space. There's no marketing required, right? How many gambling apps are like, hey, put $5 in and we'll give you $1,000 back, right? How much money do we have to pay you to get you into this system because we know you're going to spend a ton of money in this system? Ryan Cohen has gone on the record saying they are not even having to spend any money on this, and yet they are selling out of their inventory, right? So there's fewer, no one is doing exactly what GameStop's doing, but those who have a competitive product to Power Packs, their competitive offering is inferior to GameStop's for several reasons, but especially because GameStop's is exclusively partnered with PSA, which is something that no one else can claim. And I've shared in a different video all the competitive advantages that Power Packs has to the Courtyard.io and the Fanatics Collect and the Arena Club alternatives. But GameStop has a better product than the other ripped collectibles packs. But ripped collectibles packs, in and of themselves, are a better gambling product than the competition, right? And they're not even having to compete with the rest. So here we are. What's the fundamental driver, right, for gambling? Well, it's dopamine itself. You're just selling dopamine, right? And what's the fundamental driver for that? I mean, it could be wealth inequality that leads to financial insecurity, that leads to someone feeling the need to take on obscene financial risk. But a lot of time, it's the same things that drive the entertainment industry, right? It's just boredom, it's stress, it's overstimulation or understimulation with life, escape, it's social connection, right? It's an experience. And so fundamentally, right? So, anyways, acutely, it's easy to say, oh man, well, what if Power Packs sales go down later? Oh, what if graded cards really tank? It's like, well, of course that's possible. And when we're talking about protecting your downside risk in a hypothetical investment in GameStop, then you would want to know, right, what are the worst case scenarios? But when you're talking about valuing a company, right, what's like putting probabilities on the most likely outcomes, and you're thinking about what is the 5 to 10 year growth of the sector, right? So even if GameStop doesn't outperform its peers, right? What sectors are they positioned in? Well, they're in the entertainment sector, and they're in a store of value sector, and they're in a dopamine sector. If you wanted to get smaller than that, you could say they're in video games, they're in collectibles, and they're in gambling. Three of the largest and fastest growing sectors, industries in America, right? And the fundamental drivers behind them are so deeply entrenched, right? Can you imagine a world where people need less dopamine? That's basically saying a world that is totally reversing from the current trend of society, right? A world where people are have a less of an online presence, a world where people are less stressed, a world where people are more affluent, and also um, like much less easily influenced, right? Far fewer stimulations coming into them. So less people that are less informed in general, that watch the news less, right? You need stress to go down, wealth to go up, but engagement still to stay high, right? You can't have people bored either. So there needs to be some level of stress, some level of work. So even if you're like, well, what about universal basic income? Well, great. If people get money but they don't have to work for it, then again, they're going to be chronically understimulated, right? Looking for stimulants. You know, what you need is people to work, but not in a way that's driving them into the ground. And you need inflation to stop, right? You're talking about inflation here. Like these are some of the most deeply entrenched human realities that are underpinning the demand for the industries that for the sectors that umbrella the industries that umbrella the products that GameStop is offering. So GameStop in the past year has gone from a decent industry, like in a decent sector that is overshadowed by its physical retail reliance. What they've done over here is they've shifted more and more of their sales to be online, which will help increase that PE a little bit, right? You see a little bit more of an online presence, receiving a little bit more commonly a premium multiple. But you've seen them shift from this reliance into let's get into the products that are not just tangentially, right? Like the consoles, you know, we don't want to be the part of the industry that makes 10% of the profit. We want to be a part of the industry that is the best part of the industry, right? We want to be the graded cards, highest growth, most uh, tailwinds, right? We want to be power packs, right? That's a better gambling than gambling, and many advantages that we see to it. Overall, even if GameStop underperforms what it could do, fundamentally, right, there is demand for the sector, demand and growth in the industry, and products that are uniquely, competitively positioned, right, superior in many ways to alternatives within those high growth industries, within those well supported demand sectors. You got to love the transition GameStop's made, and it's coming through in the financials. Cannot wait to stream earnings, hopefully, right, in about 2 weeks' time, to see these numbers in real life, to see them turn from gray to black, right? And to see a company transform itself from losing hundreds of millions a year to growing at hundreds of percent a year. You gotta love it. You gotta love it. All right. That's all I got for y'all today. I will see you in the next one.